So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Thriving Communities Grantmaking Program information session. My name is Patrick Ahern with RTI, and I'll be helping out with the virtual room today. So just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. When you log in, your microphone will be automatically muted, but if you have any questions for presenters, you may submit those into the Q&A window. If you run into any technical issues, please let me know in the chat window. Closed captions are available during today's session. Just click on the Show Captions button on your main Zoom toolbar to turn those on. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Janelle to introduce us to today's session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick. And welcome again, everyone, to the Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Grantmaking Program information session. We are so happy to have you here joining us today. My name is Janelle Armstrong Brown, and I'm a Senior Research Public Health Analyst at RTI International. As a informational, RTI is an independent nonprofit dedicated to improving the human condition. We provide research, development, and technical services to local, state, and federal governments, nonprofits, and commercial clients worldwide. Within RTI, the Grant Makers Program is held by the Transformative Research Unit for Equity, also affectionately known as TRU, and that division transforms traditional research practices and mindsets to reimagine and create systems that advance equity and social justice. RTI is responsible for supporting the EPA Environmental Justice Thriving Community Grant-Making Program for Regions 4, 7, and National Central. And you'll hear Thriving Community Grant-Making Program also referred to as TCGM. I'd also like to introduce, and you'll hear a little bit more about the technical assistance centers that are supporting communities in these regions. Joining me today from the TCGM team is Tony Jones, and from the Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center for Region 4, that's myself. And then we also have Jeff Severin from the Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center for Region 7. Additionally, we also have other members of these teams who will be available to answer questions towards the end of our session. Now, I would like to turn this over to Tony Jones to tell us a little bit more about the Thriving Communities Grantmaker Program.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Janelle. Just wanted to make sure you all can hear me okay. Thumbs up. Everyone hears me okay? Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to walk through a number of slides here, not only on the TCGM program, but also on TICTAC. I know we're going to use a number of acronyms, so I'll be sure to define those as we walk through them. And then we're going to hold some time at the end for questions. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Our goal for today, our objectives, again, we're going to share that high-level description of the EJTCGM program. That's the Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Grant-Making Program. We're hoping that when you leave today, you have a better understanding of how to use the funding notice of opportunity, which we call the NOFO, to prepare for your application. Also know how to better align with your local TICTAC for assistance, and then also identify where there's additional need for support. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to walk through a quick overview. Exactly what is TCGM? Next slide. So a little bit about the program. The goal of the program overall is to support capacity for organizations and to ensure that those organizations have access to federal funding, which we know oftentimes is consumed by larger organizations. So the EJTCGM program is intended to increase efficiency for smaller organizations and also to reduce those barriers to receiving that funding. In that spirit, the goal is to encourage meaningful engagement. As we get through the slides, you'll note that the EJTCGM program is largely designed with community members at the heart of making decisions around the program itself and the funding mechanisms. Next slide. So Janelle hit on this a little bit, but like, who is RTI? In the EJTCGM framework, RTI serves a role as a national central grant maker, which is delineated in the maps with the states showing colors for regions 4, 5, 6, and 7. RTI is also a regional grant maker for Region 4, and RTI also has a special focus on Region 7. Um, RTI is working with a number of partners that are listed below in the development of the EJTCGM program across those three aspects of the program. So that's SCLC, North Carolina Central University, the National Center for Healthy Housing, University of Kentucky, and ICMA, the International City County Management Association. Next slide. So this question comes up a lot. Who exactly and what organizations are eligible for EJTCGM awards? So this list is intended to be exhaustive, but there are a number of organizations that may fit into any one of these categories. So largely nonprofit organizations, community-based, and grassroots nonprofit organizations. You'll hear a recurring theme about ensuring access to federal funds for those organizations that traditionally may not have the resources to compete for those funds. And then it also includes local governments, tribal governments, and colleges and universities and institutes of higher educations. There is an exclusion. Individuals, for-profit businesses, and state, and of course, federal governments are not eligible to apply for the program. Next slide. So what types of EJTCGM opportunities are there? We'll spend a little more time on this slide. It'll show up again, and that was intentional in the slides to come, but just as a quick overview, the program is designed in essentially 4 funding compartments. The first being a non-competitive funding opportunity that is designed to help organizations build capacity for applying for the 3 tiers within TCGM. So again, these grants are not competitive. That means they're going to be awarded directly to organizations that demonstrate they need them. The application process is going to be a little bit different for these awards, so not as many questions. There's still going to be a requirement to showcase a budget, outline project ideas, give some information about the organization. But these awards will not move through the same review process. They'll go directly to those community advisory boards to determine if an organization has submitted enough information to showcase that a capacity building award, that organization is eligible for a capacity building award. Once we get into the competitive tiers, the distinctions here really fall around what type, or maybe I should say the phase in which that project will begin with the EJTCGM program. And before walking through these, because I want to say this multiple times too, the non-competitive award and the 3 tiers are not intended, applicants do not have to move through these tiers in chronological order. So again, it depends on the phase of the project. So if a project is already, excuse me, in the planning phase where there's partnership building, public outreach, stakeholder coordination, training activities, community cleanup, those things listed under that bullet, if those are what constitutes the next steps for the project, then the application would be submitted for a Tier 2 grant under EJ-TCGM. If a project is already ready to essentially put the shovel in the ground, then we're going for Tier 3. If an organization is applying for that non-competitive award, the program, which we'll see in the slides to come, is designed so the organization can receive that non-competitive award and then jump right into the EJ-TCGM program cycle with applying for one of the competitive Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 awards. I'm sure that sparked a lot of questions, so we'll be ready for those in the end. Next slide, please. So exactly how does that application submission and the review timelines work? So the Notice of Funding Opportunity, NOFO, was released yesterday. We're really excited about that. We've already seen a lot of activity through our portal and our website. So also excited about that too. So once applications are submitted, they will be accepted on a rolling basis. And then decisions will be announced quarterly. So what that means is this is not like a first come, first serve type of funding program. It is designed to allow organizations to move through the NOFO and apply within a funding cycle that best aligns with your organization's resources. So for instance, once the application portal opens, which we're expecting that to be next week, after the application is submitted, all applications that are submitted before that first cycle that's noted there, January 31st, 2025, what this means is your organization is guaranteed to have their application reviewed in that first quarter, with the decision announcement happening in that first quarter. If the application comes in after January 31st, then it will move into review for the second quarter. And so that's your rolling basis for application submittal and reviews. And of course, this is going to be a community guided process with community advisory boards or CABs, ultimately making the final decisions for funding. Next slide. So what does that mean? Guided by community members. So again, CABs, community advisory boards, are employed to review the application and ultimately decides which organizations will receive funding. There's also a component in the review process where there are external reviewers that will support the CABs. And their primary roles will be to utilize their lived experience and bring that expertise, whether it's lived experience, technical, professional, to do an initial review of the application, providing that information to the CABs in their review. There are also tribal liaisons that are working with the EJ-TCGM program to ensure that there's reach and connection to tribes and indigenous peoples, because ultimately our goal is to ensure that this funding makes it to those communities that have projects where they can mitigate environmental harm and burden. Also on this slide, I think I'm going to get to this in one of the other slides, but again, I'm going to do my best to repeat as much as I can. That always helps me. So I'm hoping that'll be helpful to those of you here today. Once that the application is submitted, RTI is conducting a 10-day administrative review. And so what that means is we're going to have a group that's going to take a look at your application, ensure that everything is there so that it can move through the process, so that there's not this long window of you waiting to see is my address in the right format? Do I have the zip code? Is there a problem with the UEI? Did I apply to the right tier, or maybe even to the right grant maker? So we're going to take a look at all applications that come in. We're committing to a 10-day window for responding with any potential deficiencies or concerns with the application, so that organizations can quickly address those and get right back into the application process for the funding. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know we are going over a lot today. And yes, this session is going to be recorded, and we're going to share the slides, but we also expect that there are going to be questions that really get into the details of different aspects of the program. So we've set up several webinars, upcoming webinars. More detail will be shared on those. If you're not signed up to receive email updates, please visit our website at thrivingenvironments.org and sign up so that updates come to your inbox about how to register and when. We're providing multiple opportunities to attend these webinars, and they will be focused on region specific. Additionally, we have different topics here. So webinar 1, applying for a non-competitive award; 2, describing your organization; 3, developing your project; and 4, developing your proposal budget. We are putting these webinars on in partnership with the regional Tic Tacs. And so our hope is that there are multiple avenues for your organization to receive access or assistance for accessing TCGM funds. Next slide. All right, so let's spend a little more time on the notice of funding opportunity. Like, what is it, where is it, and how can it be helpful? Next slide. So our goal with the notice of funding opportunity, or the NOFO, was to take all of the information that comes from EPA and all of the requirements around how to apply for federal funding, what's required, and distill that into one document that you could essentially have in one hand while you're preparing your application. So it's designed to walk you through the process. It's also color coded, so those sections of the NOFO around applying and preparing for your application are bolded in one color. And then what to expect after walks through details on the review process, breaks down the different steps, and then also identifies points for to receive program feedback, because the community involvement process or goal doesn't just stop, or I shouldn't say, it doesn't start with award and funding, but it also starts with the design of the program. And so there's opportunities for feedback too. Next slide. All right, so we're back here again about the different types of EJTCGM grant opportunities. What I really wanted to highlight here, now that we know that there is a non-competitive award and then there are competitive awards, let's talk about the financials around that. So that non-competitive award, that's going to be $75,000 to be used for building capacity within a 1-year period of performance. Your competitive awards, tier 1, up to $150,000 for a year; tier 2, up to $250,000 for up to 2 years; and tier 3, up to $350,000 for 2 years. The non-competitive awards are what we call fixed price awards. So they do not follow a reimbursement type framework, but they will be, the payment schedule is outlined and aligns with milestones for the work that showcases an organization is building capacity to apply. So what that means is once you've applied, there's going to be a process that where the organization will have to showcase, okay, I am meeting with my grant officer. That's what's next on the horizon. And the budgeting around that is $10,000. And so those awards will be have a schedule that aligns with those key milestones. The competitive awards are reimbursement style awards, but in the EJTCGM program, once an applicant has been awarded, you will be assigned a grants management officer, and we're asking that applicants work closely with their grants officer to work through any difficulties around the invoicing, payments schedule, or any potential difficulties or challenges or questions you may have with the reimbursement payment style. Next slide. All right, so wanted to spend a little bit of time just outlining, okay, what is it that we've done so far, and how is it that the EJTCGM program meets its goal of empowering applicants and reducing that administrative burden that often comes with applying for federal grants. So our goal is really to just reduce the time and the effort for completing an application. So most questions are multiple choice, they're short answer, they're based on feedback that we received from multiple listening sessions that outlined difficulties that organizations experience with applying for funding. It's so also we have very detailed descriptions of the information that's required that's in each section of the NOFO, and the NOFO also again walks through the application so you can have it in hand while filling out your application. The application is also set up so that you can save your work and return at any time. So you will not lose the progress that you've made. And if you need to break up your work and effort on the application, you absolutely can do that. You can add multiple staff and volunteers and contributors to help with your application to work on it concurrently. And of course, we've outlined a system so that you can receive email and notifications and adjust those preferences about different information that you would like to receive regarding your progress on your application. Next slide. Okay, just doing a quick time check here. We're gonna move into another set of slides. So I'm gonna speed up just a bit here. Again, this slide just walks through, it gives you an actual graphic of what you would see in the NOFO and how that aligns with the application. Next slide. A little bit on those non-competitive foundational support grants. So you'll hear probably different names for these, but again, these grants are focused on building capacity for those organizations that need it most to help them prepare for future funding awards. So again, it's non-competitive. We'll receive that project information, and that includes budget. There are a couple of questions there that are required for all applicants. And then we'd also want to know some information about the organization. There's a request for information on the project. And then again, like noted, that application is going to move right through to the CABs for selection and award. Next slide. All right, so what happens next? We have a 4-step review process. This, again, for those tiered competitive awards, we're going to have that initial administrative review, hoping to keep that to no more than 10 days. That external review that we talked about from built of folks who are going to use their professional, technical, and lived experience, we're expecting that to be about 2 to 3 weeks. And then it moves to those community advisory boards for review. And then we have our final notice of funding. We're expecting all of this to be less than 3 months. Next slide. A little bit on those application submission timelines. Again, this just goes back to those cycles that we talked about earlier. Just wanted to show again, just in case you were taking those down, what we expect those cycles to be and those dates for review and submission. Next slide. All right, I think I'm only a minute over. I'm hoping I have that time right. So now I am going to turn this over to Janelle to talk a bit about the Tic Tac program. Janelle, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Tony. And thanks for giving us that great overview. I know there have been a lot of questions coming through, and I just wanted to let you all know that some of them are being answered within the Q&A function, and also some of them we will try to answer live. So just wanted to let you know that we are looking at those questions and trying to be as responsive as possible. So I wanted to talk today about the Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers. They are supporting communities in applying for the Grantmakers program that we just heard about. Today, I'm going to talk specifically about the services the Technical Assistance Center in Region 4 will provide for communities applying for TCGM funding. And we'll hear a little later from the Technical Assistance Center serving Region 7. Next slide, please. So the Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center for Region 4 is it's called the Resource for Assistance and Community Training in Region 4 on Environmental Justice, or REACT for EJ. And as you can see, we cover 8 states within Region 4, and we have a network of state and national partners and to address issues that communities are experiencing throughout these regions. And I won't go through all of this, all of our partners, but you do see them here on the slide, and several of them have joined us on this call. And so we definitely look forward to connecting with you. So we work closely with these state partners in each of these states, and also with the 6 federally recognized tribal nations. Next slide, please. So the React for EJ team will be supporting organizations applying for a TCGM award. This support is in addition to providing React for EJ's existing services to Region 4 residents. TCGM specific support services include weekly office hours, topical webinars, weekly application work sessions, and biweekly SAM.gov registration sessions led by the Environmental Protection Network. Office hours will be held once a week. They are group-based virtual sessions via Zoom, similar to what we're doing here, where questions are answered in real time. Pre-registration for these sessions is required so that we can learn in advance what individual needs are prior to the session. You can register on the events page at www.reactforej.org. The first office hour will be held on Monday, December 23rd from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time. Topical webinars will be held once or twice per week beginning in January, and they will be recorded. They will consist of 4 different topics that coincide with different sections of the application that include describing your organization, developing a project, creating a budget, applying for non-competitive awards. These sessions will also be recorded. You can register on the TCGM website at Cultivating Healthy Environments on the applications page. And I know you all know where the website is because that's how you got to here today. So you can definitely go back to that website to register for these working sessions. In addition, we will be holding weekly application work sessions starting the week of January 6th, 2025. These virtual sessions will be group-based with breakout sessions that will focus on specific sections of the application. Again, pre-registration is required. You can register soon at the reactforej.org on our events page. Finally, the Environmental Protection Network, a regional partner of React for EJ, will be holding SAM.gov office hours every 2 weeks on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 2 p.m. Central. These virtual sessions will provide help starting, continuing, or completing the SAM.gov process. Pre-registration is required. The next SAM.gov office hours is December 18th, and again, from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 2 p.m. Central. If you find it at all difficult to attend these sessions because of timing, technology challenges, or other issues, please let us know via our website or 1-800 number so that we can find a better way to accommodate your needs. Next slide, please. So this is just a list of some of the other services that we provide. The React for EJ team, we will all be offering to TCGM as well as other funding opportunities. And some of these services include partnership development, such as identifying partners, connecting with environmental justice groups, engaging communities, finding funding, project development, such as generating project ideas, grant writing skills, navigating grant systems, identifying EJ issues and using EJ tools. Also, we can help in connecting communities to subject matter experts in areas such as environmental air quality, water quality, health, mapping, and use of GIS and clean energy adoption. So this is a list of various services that we provide. Next slide, please. And here, this is where you can contact us. And this is the website, React for EJ. And when you get to this site, we will ask you for some information. So please fill that out. And we also have a number if the website is not accessible to you. So now I would like to turn it over to our colleagues in Region 7 Technical Assistance Center, Jeff Severin.
Well, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Thanks so much for including us in this event. My name is Jeff Severin. I'm the Associate Director for the Heartland Environmental Justice Center. So those of you who are in Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, or an adjoining Indigenous nation, we are your Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center. Go ahead into the next slide. We provide very similar services to what Janelle just described, only for folks here in Region 7. We work as much as we can to customize our services around individual needs. And so offer, again, because our focus is on helping folks pursue funding for environmental and energy justice projects, we recognize that everybody's kind of at a different point in their readiness and ability to pursue that funding. And so it's our job just to make sure that we're helping you prepare in whatever way is needed to get you to that point. So that might look like developing project concept ideas. It might be connecting you to other resources or other organizations in your area that can partner with you and kind of build out your network and kind of peer-to-peer opportunities. Or if you're ready to just dive right in and get started writing a grant, that's what we're here for as well. Next slide. We have a similar process that starts with that intake form. So if you're interested in receiving services and working with us, it starts at our website. There's an intake form there to provide a little bit of information about your organization, what your EJ issues that you want to be addressing are. Provide as much information as you can in that form. From there, you'll get assigned to a team member that can best support your needs. We have several project managers, and if you're in Kansas City, Wichita, or part of a tribal nation, then we have staff that are designated to those areas. And that will kick off that process of intake. So we'll spend a little time learning more about you, talking about your challenges, your goals, and be able to develop that into kind of a step-by-step plan for you to work on, to build those any capacity that needs to happen, or if it's identifying other funding sources beyond this opportunity, or just getting started with this grant. So once that is agreed upon, then we can support you throughout that process. We don't just kind of disappear once you get to a work plan proposal, but really want to make sure that we're helping you throughout that process, whether it's working through the grant application. We can't do the writing for you, but we can help you through that process. Or if it's once you've received grant funding, helping you with that grant management on the other side. Next slide. So these are ways to connect with us. Again, the best place to start is that contact us form to provide that information. Also at the bottom of our website, and probably it will pop up a few times when you first visit, is a place to subscribe to our newsletter or email list so that you're getting up-to-date information as we're sharing out things that we've got going on. And of course, you can find us on social media. A couple of things specific to Grantmaker that I want to be able to share is that we will be hosting individual office hours. So starting in January, there'll be a place that you can link to sign up for if it's just a quick question that you have to connect with somebody on our team for a 15-minute call. If you need to dive in a little bit deeper, there'll be some opportunities for longer kind of one-on-one calls with our staff. We are hosting kind of meet and greet sessions online. So if you just want to learn a little bit more about the services that we provide and how to work with us, the next one is scheduled for next Thursday at 9 a.m. You can register on our website, and I'll drop that link in the chat here in a bit. And then we are also planning a series of workshops for kind of starting in the second cycle. So we'll have announcements about the dates for those after the first of the year, but what that will look like is an opportunity both online and in person to spend some dedicated time in a workshop that we hope by the end of that workshop you'll have that application mostly ready to go and just ready to review and submit. So making sure that we're kind of creating that space and time for folks to not only learn about the process, but actually do that work along while staff are there to provide some direct support. And we are also partners with EPN, so I wanted to make sure that folks that in our region also were aware of the resources that they have along with that SAM.gov training. They've got some other Grantmaker resources that are really handy, including an AI assistant. So if that's something that you want to use to kind of help get started with your writing. All right, I think I'm turning it back to Janelle or Tony. Who's next?
I believe it is Tony to close us out and take us into the Q&A session.
Yes, that's right. So we really want to emphasize the goal of having community and organizations fully involved in the EJTCGM program. So what is it that you can do now? Well, of course, we want those organizations that plan to apply to be thinking about your project needs, and what is it that you need to address an issue in your community. Of course, the EJTCGM grants are aligned with those communities that are termed disadvantaged by EPA. And so the focus there would be on those environmental justice or injustices that can be mitigated through projects using the EJTCGM funds. Of course, you should review that notice of funding opportunity, the NOFO, make sure that your organization has applied through sam.gov for the UEI, and there's guidance in the NOFO to help with that. Make sure you're looking at your resources around budgeting. Do you have the right people in place? Do you need to connect with your local or regional TIC-TAC for additional support? Of course, making sure you're receiving updates from both the TIC-TAC and the EJTCGM program. And then once those community advisory boards are up and running, making sure that you've connected now to either serve on one of those boards if there's interest. They're sharing about the EJTCGM program with your network. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to roll right into the Q&A session. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. And of course, anyone from RTI, if there's anything that I miss in housekeeping, please jump in. The questions are in, we're receiving those questions in the Q&A. Some of those questions have already been answered in writing, and you'll see that those were dismissed. So once the response was given in writing, those were dismissed. I do believe we've also dismissed questions that were answered or questions that were submitted more than once. But what we're going to do now is grab some of these questions and see if we can provide some answers. So I think, Laura, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Tony. We have a lot of good questions, a lot of activity going here. So I just wanted to start with an easy one about, will the website have an FAQ on it? Tony or Dilsey, you want to take that one?
I can absolutely take that one, but if Dilsey, I'm sorry, I can't see if, oh, I hear you. There you are. Yes, please.
Yes, we'll have an FAQ once the application comes out. So we've been listening to all the questions and deciding which questions, should be on the FAQ, but yes, there'll be an FAQ available.
Okay, thank you, Dilsey. What about if an organization sub-award a portion of their Tier 3 award? Are they allowed to do a subcontract within the Tier 3? Tony, do you have that?
I actually need someone on the team to confirm what I think. Maybe we can come back to that one.
Okay.
I want to make sure that I am giving accurate information. And also, folks, just want to make folks aware, any of the questions that we don't get to today, we will take those back to our team and provide responses either through that FAQ or follow up. So please make sure you ask your questions, but don't be alarmed if we need to take some questions back today and then confirm those responses.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there are a lot that we will be going back to on those, but I will answer what we can right now. So, oh, there are so many questions. Does somebody want to talk about the pre-award costs and what will happen with pre-award if any money should be spent before this is being awarded?
Yeah, that's actually another one. We definitely want to thank you for that question, but that's another one that we'll need to confirm with our grants management team and provide a response in the FAQ.
Okay. What about disadvantaged areas identified by the federal government? So I know we talk about wanting to identify if you are part of something defined by the federal government identified as a disadvantaged area. Is that a requirement to apply?
Yes. So there are a couple of questions in here along those lines. I think,
Mhm.
and I'm looking at these two, Laura, so I'm going to try to group them all and answer the question.
Okay.
Wholly. There's another one here that's asked, if my organization is not labeled disadvantaged in the IRA EJ screen map, am I still eligible to apply? Want to clarify about eligibility to apply to EJ TCGM and project eligibility. So the distinction there, eligibility to apply to the program is outlined. That was in that first set of slides that I showed. So you can't be a for-profit business, shouldn't be state government. And so its eligibility would be limited to nonprofit, community-based organizations, tribal nations, indigenous groups, philanthropic organizations. So that list there that outlined eligibility. For projects, the EJTCGM funding is intended for projects that will benefit communities outlined in areas or communities that are in areas designated as disadvantaged. So yes, EPA has several tools available. And obviously, those of you on the call are familiar with those. I'm seeing that in the chat. EJ Screen, the CGES, the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, that has an IRA funding layer on it that shows which areas across the US are designated by that tool as being disadvantaged. So that's your distinction for applying and for projects. But we also know that there are limitations with those tools. We understand CGES is largely utilizes census data, and so it's at a larger track level or block level. And so there may be pockets of communities that meet the disadvantaged criteria, and that could absolutely benefit from EJTCGM funding for projects that would mitigate environmental harm that may not show up. And so the application gives an opportunity for the applicant to describe the project and how it's going to benefit these traditionally marginalized communities. If there is a follow-up question for that, please put that in the Q&A and I'd be happy to follow up there, but I hope that helps.
Thank you, Tony. I saw a few questions about community advisory boards along the lines of how do you join and can you be a member and still apply for a grant as well. So Tatiana, would you be able to answer those?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of responses and then I'll invite Tony to clarify any other details. So thank you so much. My camera is not working, so I apologize for not being on camera. But hi everyone, Tatiana Bustos. Thank you for the questions. The first about how do you apply to be on the CABs? That information will be forthcoming. For now, we are directing folks to the Stay Connected form. That was provided in the website link. And what you do is just let us know that you're interested in the CABs, and we'll be reaching out with next steps and more information once we're able to. So that's the best way to stay connected on our next steps with the community advisory boards. The other question about can an applicant be eligible to serve on the CAB? So there are, each region has 4 community advisory boards. So that's 4 community advisory boards who are made up of different members on each board, meaning that you can still, you yourself or your organization, rather is more appropriate, your organization could be a potential applicant while also being on the CAB, but you will not be reviewing it. So if the particular community advisory board that you are part of will not be managing or reviewing that specific application. There are some caveats, and so we are managing conflict of interest procedures and things like that. Tony, is there anything else that you would like to add about that process?
Nope, that gets it all. Thanks, Tatiana.
All right. Thank you.
Great. I see there were a few questions about construction and destruction or equipment costs. Tony, would you be best, or who would be best to answer those?
Is there one question or a couple that you would like to read? I haven't quite caught
Sure.
one.
Let me find. I think some of these were answered in typing. Can an
Okay.
organization apply for deconstruction funds under Tier 2 to remove an abandoned building?
Yes. So Christine Bevick is also one of the deputy directors for the EJTCGM program, and she has responded to that in writing. So she's
Okay.
also capturing some of these. Also, as you're looking at questions, Laura, I just wanted to take a second to let attendees know that the upcoming webinars that break out into different topics, that's where we're going to well, as you can imagine, the RTI EJTCGM team has a number of experts and staff, and so we couldn't have all of those present for today's call. But for those webinars, we will, based on topic, make sure that we have our team members that were integral in the design of those aspects of the program present to really get into the weeds of some of these questions that you all have. So again, please continue to put your questions there, and for whatever questions that aren't responded to, we'll absolutely capture those in the upcoming webinars and the FAQ. So yes, on construction, Christine has answered that in writing, and hopefully that captured the series of questions that have come in around construction.
There are a lot of questions I see that are about specific eligibility. So I think we can save those and answer those directly in the FAQ or write people directly on those about their eligibility. I see a question about asking if all the regions are offering the non-competitive grants.
So the way the EJTCGM program is constructed is that there are different grant makers at the national scale and also different grant makers at the regional scale. And so while the program itself as a whole is largely consistent, you're going to see some differences between the different programs from region to region.
Okay. For the two that we are representing for regions 4, region 7, and then the national central, do they all have non-competitive grants available?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Is there anything we'd like to say? There were a couple of questions about how funding will be distributed by region and how much funding is available total. Would you like to address that?
Sure, I can speak to that. And Laura, also, I will try to capture, I'm looking at some of the questions here too, so there are a few that I'll also try to capture. So around funding, how many funds are going to be awarded, how much for each region, all of those questions. So we're expecting the program to move somewhere along 500 or more grants. That's what we've estimated. When it breaks out by region, what we're going to do is ensure that our websites and communication is updated to show how much funding is remaining in each region as awards are distributed. And I'm also going to just in the spirit of full transparency and disclosure, some of the aspects of the questions that are being asked, we're still working with EPA on some of those pieces. And so I don't want to share numbers that are premature, but once the funding begins, it will be transparent and clear how much funding is remaining in each region. Of course, as you all know, EPA has a large task right now with ensuring that these funds make it to communities in a timely manner. And I absolutely appreciate how, as they are receiving information that's going to help this program be more efficient and ensure that all funds are awarded and distributed, the guidance evolves. And so we're adjusting with that. So I guess that was a lot of words for stay tuned. That information will be transparent and shared across the National Region 4 and Region 7 websites as awards begin.
I'm going to combine two quick questions quickly. So one person, Mandy, is asking if they can apply for their specific funding need or if they need to apply for the full amount on each tier. And then another is the grant a reimbursement model? So just how are the funds getting to people?
Yes. Okay. So for the first question, so just to repeat, we have the non-competitive awards for $75,000, and then we have the competitive awards, which are 3 tiers. Those do not have to be applied to in a chronological order, and they also do not have to be applied for max. There's no, how should I say it? There's no requirement or stipulation around the amount. The amount would be based on the budget and the phase at which the project is in at the start of the award for the program. So just to recap, if your project is in the planning phase and meets the criteria for a tier 2 project, I don't have the number right in front of me, but I believe that's up to 250,000. Then if your project is in the planning phase and the budget for that is 220,000, then that is what you would submit in your application, and the Community Advisory Board would then review that for funding. The second part of the question about the funding mechanism, yes, tier 1, tier 2, and 3 are reimbursement payment schedules, but the capacity foundational award, which is non-competitive for 75,000, is not reimbursement. Were those all the questions, Laura?
Yes, that was the ones I asked. And by not reimbursable, you mean they get the disbursement of funds once awarded?
So the funds would be dispersed based on milestones. So once awarded, the grantee would then have to relay the upcoming milestone and the associated budget for fund disbursement.
Thank you.
Yes.
I see that we are at the end of our time. I don't know if anyone on the team has any others answers they'd like to get in before we wrap up.
I did. I had one really quick one, which I'm hoping would be easier to clarify here than through an FAQ. So there was a question about, can you explain the 50,000 population mentioned in the NOFO as it applies to local governments? That is a great question. So the TCGM program, of course, is intended for those resource constrained organizations. Again, those organizations that traditionally have not had a place to apply for federal funding. And so the EPA solicitation for this program, when outlining eligibility, gave a definition for local government, and that points back to ECFR 200. And in the ECFR 200, that points back to the Regulatory Flexibility Act, which gives the boundary for what's considered a local government. So essentially, you would likely not see Los Angeles applying for an EJTCGM grant as their local government population is large and well-resourced. But it goes back to those statutory definitions and outlining what's considered a local government or a small entity. Anybody else in the EJTCGM team that sees a question that they'd like to quickly address before we end our session today? Okay, Laura, I'm not hearing anything. Am I turning it back to you to close this out?
I think we're just ready to close it out now.
Okay.
I think there's one more slide, maybe.
Oh, so next slide. Yes,
Oh,
so
a
that
few more
would be
slides.
me. Yes.
Mhm.
So really quickly here, of course, we want to showcase many opportunities to stay in touch, to continue to ask your questions. Our goal here is to provide the support that's needed to, again, I intentionally want to sound like a broken record to ensure that these funds make it into the hands of those organizations that can help mitigate environmental harm and burden in communities that are often marginalized and have historically been oppressed. And so please stay in touch. You can use that QR code. It's going to take you to our website where you can enter your information if you're interested in applying for a grant, serving on a community advisory board. If you just want information about all of them, click all of those. And that way you can receive information real time. And then if you find that after today's session, you still have questions about the program, just click on that Contact Us. And that's going to get you directly to our inbox. And we are committing to responding to those questions that come in as in a timely fashion. Let's see, I'm going to say next slide, but I don't think there's, well, there we go. So additional information, Daniela Pineda is the program director. Again, Christine Bevick and I serve as deputy program directors. And then we share our social media handles there. So we would ask that you follow, like, and subscribe for more information. And we'd like to thank you all for your time today. That's going to conclude our session. We look forward to hosting the upcoming sessions and speaking with you all again soon. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.